Hello, friends, and welcome to Word in Black's live conversation with Savannah Basley. She is a lead actress on SYFY Channel's Reginald the Vampire. I'm Nadira Jamerson, digital editor for Word in Black. For those of you who don't know already, we're a collaborative newsroom founded by 10 legendary Black publishers in response to the murder of George Floyd. As part of our mission to drive equity and justice, we like to hear from the folks in our community who are creating solutions and uplifting us as a people. If you don't already, follow us on social media, subscribe to our newsletters, and visit us on the web at wordandblack.com. Thanks so much for joining me, Savannah. It's great to have you.
Thank you so much for having me.
So when people think about the fantasy genre, even though folks like Octavia Butler are some of the most prolific writers in the space, they still don't often think about Black people and especially Black women in the mainstream. So given that reality, what made you first want to get into the fantasy and TV film space? And how has it been for you as a Black woman to break into this field?
Ooh. It's a really good question. I've always really enjoyed fantasy and horror. I'm a big fan. I love the genres. I find fantasy and horror are kind of easier avenues to talk about harder topics without it kind of being like directly in your face. There's like levels to it. You can just think of these things on the surface level of like whatever creature or planet, things like Avatar, stuff like that. Or you can try and think of it on a deeper level and try and figure out what they're like, if there's another meaning to the story. So I like the levels of storytelling that there are. In terms of getting into breaking into the genre, I think it's been I don't want to say like very difficult to get into the genre. I guess maybe because I'm still trying to make my way in the industry, that I just find everything kind of difficult. Trying to get myself into different roles. Perhaps I haven't quite thought about the particulars. Maybe just for my own mental health, I just try to think of it as a general. It's just difficult in general to get roles. But I have found that I think through some networking and things like that, it has made it easier. I've been able to find some people that have really rooted for me in that sense, which I'm so thankful for. And I think that that's kind of been the biggest thing, is just the people that have continuously put the word out for me, and kind of have just been like cheerleaders of me. And I think probably when I think about it, that's definitely probably what's gotten me into these roles a lot of the time. But yeah, sorry, that was like a multifaceted question. And
No,
I was
that's
like, what am I trying to say?
I love what you said about how, like fantasy and horror allow communities and especially marginalized communities to deal with bigger issues. Like we've seen that with Jordan Peele's Get Out or Candyman, dealing with these real life racial traumas, but giving Black people a safe space to kind of view from the comfort of your own home or a movie theater. And even sometimes be able to defeat, the obstacle, which we don't often get to do in real life. So I think that's wonderful and that's powerful. Do you have any, I guess, Black women idols that you look up to in the fantasy space? Is there anyone, even present or past, that we should be following who's also making waves in this genre?
Ooh.
It could be characters too. I know you said you liked Aaliyah from Queen of the Damned.
Yeah, that's kind of like a really big one for me. Every time someone asks me like one of these, I'm always like, my brain like goes completely like blank anytime. Like, what's your favorite horror movie? And I'm like,
Have I
I don't
ever
know.
seen one? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. but that's a really big one for me. Anytime I really think about a fantasy or anything like that, I think I grew up in a very like small white town. It was very like me and my sister were the only people of color in that town, and um, that was a really difficult thing to go through. You know, I had my challenges. It was not a very pleasant experience. I had a mixture of very like blatant racism happen to me, and then a lot more kind of like ignorant comments as I got older. And I just remember seeing Aaliyah. To me, she looked very much like me, and that was something that was so exciting to see as a kid. You know, I had like Raven Simone on my TV and stuff like that. But in terms of the movies that I was really enjoying, I just remember the first time I saw Aaliyah in Queen of the Damned. I was like blown away. I watched that movie so many times. There was something about the way that she moved and the way that she stole like every scene that she was in. She just was absolutely stunning to me. And for me, that was like a really big thing that kind of, I don't know if that introduced me to my love of vampires, but I wanted to be her so badly. I just think she did such an amazing job with that role. And to know that that was like one of like, I think it was one of her last roles, which also makes me like so sad to think about. But she just, yeah, she just shone on that screen. And I just, every time that I kind of get onto set to do Reginald the Vampire, I'm always thinking of Aaliyah and her character, the way that she moved, the way that she mixed her physicality in, like her dance work and all of that stuff. It was just so cool. And then, honestly, I've been a really big fan of, you already said his name, but Jordan Peele's really amazing.
Yes.
Um, his work is so great. I love. I also love the fact that he came from like comedy.
Yeah, and was just like, I'm like the horror guy now. Yeah.
Yeah, kind of like nervous when he was like, "Yeah, we're getting to horror," and I was like, "Oh, it's gonna be more like comedic horror," which is like totally fine. Like if I'm gonna watch a comedy, it's gonna be like a comedy horror.
Yeah.
But I was totally shocked by the way that he came in there, and especially in oh my gosh, I'm blanking on her name, but Us.
Yes.
Yes,
Lupita, is that who's in it? Lupita?
yes, that's when I was absolutely blown away by her performance, and that was amazing. The fact that she played the two characters, and I was really impressed with her performance. Once again, people who like you just may not have like thought horror when you see them, and
Mhm.
then she just came in and blew it out of the water.
And I think that's one of my favorite things just about Black people reclaiming like fantasy and sci-fi and horror spaces. Like they're doing things we've never seen before. You know, it's not just the traditional like jump scares or guy chasing you, you know, with the machete. It's like has a deeper meaning. So I love that. I love that you pointed that out. So as you continue to work, get more into your fields and into your career, how would you like to see the representation of Black women specifically improve in this space?
Oh, that's a very big question. I think there are so many aspects that can change. I think for me, especially being a Canadian actor,
Mm.
um, there tends to be, I think sometimes it's more behind the scenes for me. Um, Especially, yeah, we don't always have the right. Okay, now let me preface this by saying that like my hair and makeup teams are absolutely amazing. I adore them so much. So this is not directed at them. It's just more so directed in a general, as like a general thing. But we don't always have people that are qualified or that are 100% knowledgeable in things like doing POC makeup and hair. This is like a really big one where a lot of the times we have to get sent off somewhere offset or on our own time to go get our hair done for things. I'm a really big fan of doing like natural hairstyles. When I work, a lot of the time I like to do natural hairstyles. This year on Reginald, I opted to just do the wig, but I also thought that the color and everything was very fitting for Angela. So this time around, I did make an exception, but a lot of the time I like to do natural hairstyles, especially on my show Surreal Estate, because my character Zoe is like in an office and she's a receptionist. And so I wanted it to, I was hoping that perhaps if there were people that still had trouble with wearing their natural hair to work, or even just maybe people could see it more often on their screens, then maybe it would kind of become more like normalized for them. Whereas when they saw, you know, if they were a manager or a boss and they saw someone come with a natural hairstyle, to them they would think, oh, that is professional, because I have seen it in like a professional setting on TV. But yeah, circling back to like the idea of having more people behind the scenes, I think it's really important to make actors feel comfortable, and especially Black actors, because a lot of the time when we ask for these things, sometimes it can come off as it feels like a big ask, or it feels like we're trying to ask for special treatment or something like that, when in reality it's just something that we should get.
You're really
A
asking
lot of
for the same treatment as everybody else. It's just, yeah.
exactly, yeah. So I think that's really a big one, and I think that it's kind of been an issue for a while. You'll hear like a lot of actresses talk about it. I believe yeah, there's been a lot of,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
a lot of actresses have spoken about the fact that it's, you're going in onto set and you can see like your other co-stars that are able to just relax and they're reading their lines or whatever, but we have to almost sometimes micromanage the hair or makeup team to make sure that it's coming across the same, and we don't have the privilege of having that extra time to get our lines or to get just to relax and prepare for our scenes. And so I think that's a really big thing, especially. And I think, I guess I just want it to be an even playing field, really. So that things can, just telling stories, I guess, to me is like a really big thing, instead of having to make it feel like it's own thing. I feel like these are just stories that need to be told. They just should be told. And so just having more of an opportunity to do that would be such a big thing.
I think that's an amazing point, because a lot of the time when we think about representation, we think about the forward-facing people, like the actors and actresses. But in order to really have Black voices be shared, we need Black writers who are writing the script, and directors, and stylists and everything. So it's not just a Black face saying things that they don't really feel. It's the whole culture can be represented in a more
And
authentic
I think more stories in general, I guess, would be really nice. Things that aren't one side of the spectrum or the other. I was a very like emo kid growing up. You don't hear about very many Black like emo, gothy kids. And so that's a story that needs to be told as well. I grew up, I'm biracial. And so I always feel like that's such a unique journey on its own. Like there's so many aspects that I think of Black stories that are unique and can be told. And so I'm just excited to hopefully have more of those experiences and those journeys be told on screen. I think it's so important because not every Black story is the same, and everybody, there's so many different ranges of stories to be told.
So I won't keep you too much longer, but I wanted to wrap up with just what are some tips that you have for other Black women who want to break into the fantasy, sci-fi space? Any tips you have that can just help them feel confident as they're embarking on their journey?
Ooh, um, I would say just don't, I mean, we just talked about being pigeonholed. Like, don't shy away from putting yourself out there. If there's, a character that maybe you see in the breakdown that you think you would portray better, don't be afraid to ask to read for that character, even if maybe it doesn't say meant for a Black character. Throw yourself in the mix, anyways. There's no harm in doing that, of doing the self tape anyways. Throw this extra self tape in, because sometimes they don't always know what it is that they want.
Mm.
And you just kind of have to show them. Like, when my very first audition for Reginald, I had my hair in just a regular protective style that I had just for, when I wasn't filming. They didn't know that they wanted it, and they didn't know that they didn't want it. But once I went on camera with it, they were like, "Ooh, that we want that for the character."
Um,
And so, just make decisions, be confident in them, and just do it for the sake of wanting to be a part of it. Because, like I said, they don't know. Sometimes they don't always know what they want until they see it. And sometimes I think they don't think about it. Unfortunately, a lot of the time they're not thinking of, like, oh, we need to make sure that we include this person and this person. But if you think that you are right for the role, don't be afraid to go for it. And just know that, we belong. We belong there. And it's fantasy. It's fantasy. Fantasy is anything and everything that you can dream up. So there's no reason why it can't be you.